Welcome back, and this week we're not doing the intro. We're not doing the intro because just about an hour, maybe hour and a half ago, Jerome had just notified me that the Cleveland Guardians have traded Andres Gimenez, and right now I couldn't be more furious about it, Jerome. I don't know where your standpoint is.
Interesting. I'm in between because I think it's a good move to offload a player who can't hit. Below average hitter, but I'd be okay with it if we had an owner who would reinvest the money. They are not going to reinvest a penny of that, and that's why I'm not okay with it.
Yeah, that might give me some peace with the trade if our owner actually did that, but it doesn't give me any peace at all right now, even if we were to do that right now, just because it's very frustrating, man. I mean, this is the first trade in a long time, Cleveland sports wise, where I've been extremely deflated after reading the news. I was expecting the Francisco Lindor one. There were rumors when Shin-Soo Choo got traded. I didn't mind either of those because I saw the potential of the prospects and players that we could play immediately in those deals, because it seemed like those were both short term, and long term visions in those deals. And right now, it just seems like we're pinching pennies. This is a guy in Andres Gimenez who's the best defensive player in baseball. His platinum glove will tell you that. And this is a guy who comes up huge. And even though he's not a tremendous hitter, he's going to give you around 250, maybe even dip down to 240 on the season average, give you 10 to 15 bombs, except for the one year, a couple of years ago, I think he hit 20. Or he was right around 20 maybe. But it's just one of those, like, he's a great player to put in your seventh spot. When he gets on base, he's a dangerous runner, aggressive style at the plate, and that can come back to bite him sometimes. But it's just deflating. This was a huge person that we looked at with, Josh Naylor and Stephen Kwan as the future three huge pieces of this team, and it seems like two of those guys aren't going to be here in the next couple of weeks to a month probably.
Okay, so here's my honest to God thoughts on it, right? I get why you're deflated. You're a huge Hemi guy, and you guys will learn that. Well, you would have learned that as baseball season came about, but we're not going to be talking about him anymore. Kevin's a huge fan of him, huge. But here's where I actually do look at it, and I can understand why they made the move. You're looking at 5 years and $95 million for a guy who's only giving you, like the last 2 years. Offensively, he's given you 15 home runs, 62 RBIs, 251, 9 home runs, 63 RBIs, 252. That's not good enough. Walks, not enough there either. Only 32 walks. 2 years ago, 26. And this was a guy who hit 297, 17 home runs, 69 RBIs in 2022. It was sixth in AL MVP voting. So they've seen enough regression that they don't want to pay that money. I can understand that, unloading the contract. But where I'm upset is this is simply a money-saving move. They're not going to reinvest that money in the team. If they reinvest the money in the team, I'd go so far as to call it a good trade. We haven't even gotten to the return yet. Spencer Horwitz, yeah, he's a decent player, but you feel like you're trading for a lottery ticket. Like, he was decent last year, but is he going to be good again? And another first baseman, they're obsessed with first baseman now. They loaded up on second baseman. The bottom line, and we're fans, including myself, are frustrated, is it came down to simply they'd rather pay $700,000 to Brian Rocchio and $700,000 to Travis Bazzana to handle the middle infield because Hemi was due $10 million, and they just looked for every step of the way to save money. And you made a comment about how you feel like they're pinching pennies now. I mean, they never stopped pinching pennies. The only time they stopped is when they had John Sherman as my minority owner. And another thing I can complain about, David Blitzer is supposed to. Where's David Blitzer? Where is he? Where is he?
That's a good point.
Where's his money? I need it. And the thing is, I'm going to use an example, and I don't really want to use it because I don't think it was a good deal. There were two teams in the American League Championship Series this year. One lost Juan Soto, which was devastating for them. They turned around and gave Max Fried $218 million. The other one had re-signed Shane Bieber and then, gave him $14 million, which is way under market value. We could get to that later.
Yep.
And then decided that they needed to trade their platinum glove second baseman. Again, Kevin, if they would reinvest, I can't emphasize enough, but I have zero faith they're going to reinvest anything. But if they do, then I might come on here with a completely different tune because, again, I do look at this from the point of Jimenez's contract was way too much for what he's given you.
Yeah, but where do you look at the reinvesting? Do you look at that and reinvesting into giving that money to a Stephen Kwan or a Josh Naylor, which we obviously don't think that's going to happen with Naylor, but do you look at that as reinvesting in the current team, or do you look at that as going out and signing free agents? Do you look at it as a little bit of both? Kind of where do you
I look at it as you were in the ALCS last year. Reinvest every way you can. I'm talking extensions. I'm talking Tanner Bybee extension. I'm talking Stephen Kwan extension. I'm talking go get me a right fielder who could hit. Go get me another starting pitcher. And I know what they're going to say. Well, the starting pitching market was too much, and it actually is right now. Alex Cobb, of all people, got $15 million.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Max Fried, 8 years, $218 million. He's not worth that. But guess what? Pitching is what wins you championships. Look at the Dodgers last year, and they weren't done. They went out and got Blake Snell, 5 years, $162 million. You have to reinvest that money in the team. Go get me. I'm not asking for you to be involved in the Corbin Burns sweepstakes, but a Nathan Eovaldi, I need him here. That's a prime example of somebody like that. They need another pitcher. I mean, or if they leave things as is, I don't know how you expect anybody to be excited. Oh, by the way, they cut Guards Fest too because that was too much money. I mean, it's aggravating. It's very frustrating. I get it.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about specifically over the last 4 or 5 years or so in particular about, salary cap versus salary floor, right? And I've kind of come to the realization over the last, honestly, only really couple weeks, and it's been more so because of how the Dodgers have been spending money out the wazoo, is that a salary cap is never going to happen in the MLB, so a salary floor has to be implemented. The players will never agree to a cap.
Never.
Ever. It takes money away from them. They'll never agree to it. But you gotta get these owners to spend some money, because look at what's going on right now. Just to what Jerome said, you have a team who is in the ALCS, won a game, one of the most amazing Guardians games I've ever witnessed.
Yep.
But you won a game in the ALCS. You weren't that far away, and now you're giving up the best defensive player in baseball. And quite frankly, I know the average isn't there. I know the power's not there, but I look at him as a pretty good 7-hitter, somebody to possibly carry the bottom of the lineup of a contending team. What are we doing?
Well, exactly. It's over and over again that they don't invest. Coming off an ALCS, you know how people feel about them in this town. And every time that people start to give them like the good graces again, or they get back in folks' good graces, they turn around and do something to just piss everybody off.
Yes.
Every time.
And this is one of those deals that even on the, I feel like on the outside looking in, it just doesn't make sense. Like in 2020, when we traded Clevenger, another trade that at the time, genuinely a fan of, it obviously ended up working out to our benefit. But a lot of these trades that we've made where we've traded the best player that's involved in the deal, we've been able to look at it and say, oh, I understand that. The Bauer deal. Understood it. We got a huge power hitter in Franmil Reyes. We got a nice little outfielder and a nice power bat in Yasiel Puig. Like, that trade made sense. And then you get, obviously, the prospects that we're always so in love with. But a lot of these trades, you've been able to say, okay, I get what the point of this deal is. I can see a direction of where this team is headed. I don't see it with this trade. Spencer Horwitz, somebody with like no guaranteed future in this league. Obviously, he's a great bat against right-handed pitching, not against left. I was looking at the numbers. I was looking at the splits right after. So you're looking at probably another platoon player. Yippee. It's unbelievable, man. It's unbelievable. I've never been at the point with this team where I've been like this either. I've
been here many times.
But I've always looked at it as I understand and I get where they're going. I don't with this. This is a young, tremendous player, and I don't want to hear the Travis Bazzana excuse. I don't want to hear it. You could have easily, Jimenez was such a good defender. He can, I think, easily shift over to shortstop and have Bazzana take down second. I think you could have easily done that. I just don't understand it. I don't understand it.
I think I get it from you a little bit more, right? Because I do look at the money and the 5-year, and I get it. For a team that does pinch every possible penny, you knew that they don't want to pay somebody who can't hit 5 years and $90 million, which quite honestly, like I said, at the time when they gave him that extension, I was thrilled. And I know you were too. It was generally so unexpected, and he was coming off a year where he finished 6th in the American League MVP voting. Think about that.
Yeah.
He finished 6th, so the only way I could see where they're coming from is the regression at the plate has been so big the last couple of years. So they think that he's just never going to get back to that level again. Fine. I do get it. And if you get the Blue Jays to eat all that salary, that's fine. Because any other team who's a serious team, and we're not, we never have been. Any other team.
We were serious in 2017, big time. We went for it.
Well, because we had somebody else foot the bill.
Yeah.
Anytime the Dolans have ran, they've never been serious. And I'll say it again. I've said it for years. They don't care. That they are more concerned with Senate campaigns and saving money than they ever are spending.
Well, the thing is, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I've always looked at that as a joke and something that I found as hilarious. Even though I did want them to go out and spend more, I was always in the mindset where I kind of understood that we're in a smaller market, so I'm not expecting these huge signings all the time until I'm seeing that Dolan's like the 6th richest owner in baseball.
Right.
And that we have a bottom 5 payroll in baseball. What is going on?
Well, and I'll tell you, the Dolans aren't independently wealthy like some of these owners. Like, I'm not expecting them to be like the Steve Cohen Mets, right? Like that guy's in a league of his own. Like,
neither am I. And you know what? We haven't even gotten to the Juan Soto. We haven't even been able to talk about it yet.
And we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
This is almost like hot take hour here on the Cleveland Sports Realm, but we're gonna keep going. We got a lot to cover tonight, so we'll get everywhere.
Yeah.
But a couple more loose ends I want to tie up on this, right? So, I truly do believe if they were to reinvest the money elsewhere, I'm fine with the deal, and I know you're not, and that's okay. I'm not telling you have to look at it from my point of view. I just look at it from a baseball point of view. Do they think he was ever going to get there offensively again? And for a team that does pinch so many pennies, they probably themselves couldn't justify spending what will be escalated to $23 million next year on a guy who can't hit. And that's where I do get it. But the one thing that just driven me nuts since the 22 offseason is Jose Ramirez literally cost himself $150 million to help you out. And you've done nothing in return to help him
Coincidentally, you remember the team that was going to trade for Jose Ramirez?
Padres and Blue Jays.
The Blue Jays.
Yeah,
Padres. We now have Jimenez.
Padres and Blue Jays. So he helped you out, and in respect to him, you've done nothing to help him out. Maybe next week we come on here, and if they go and reinvest that money, I'll be okay. But again, I don't have faith they're going to do that, and that's why we both agree that it's a bad deal. The reasons we think it's a bad deal for different reasons for each of us, though.
Yeah, I mean, my whole deal is that I know that he's the best defender in baseball, and he's an average hitter. In my opinion, he's an average hitter. And then there's Spencer Horowitz, who's a glorified utility player, and that's the biggest player we got in this.
Well, and I do get that. Look, they did need to lengthen the lineup, and they did need more power. But now with the problem is they're probably going to turn around and flip Naylor. And where I do agree with you is I was hoping for something better in their return. I get the starting pitching market is crazy. We've already covered that. We've used a couple different deals as examples earlier in the pod. I get it, but that's where the game is right now, and that's where the level of owners, the other owners are who are serious. And they're not the only unserious organization in baseball. There's a lot of other ones we could talk about and rip a lot of other owners, but we're going to focus on them because that's who we both root for.
Yep.
They're as unserious as it gets. And if you truly are that money hungry and you just want to, collect all that money and you don't want to reinvest in the team, then look at yourself in the mirror and sell. It's more than time.
Absolutely.
And if you're not, look, that's where the market is for starting pitching. And look where Soto set it for hitting for the future.
Unbelievable. And you're literally only paying for the bat.
Yeah, exactly. Jimenez, you're only paying for the glove. But what wins
at a fifth of the price?
But what wins in the postseason, though? I mean, you have to have that power, and you have to be able to hit the ball out of the yard.
Say defense wins championships.
But and you have to be able to pitch, and that's why, again, Fried setting the starting pitching market where it was today is the first big deal. Alex Cobb, $15 million, and there's been a couple other. I mean, Yusei Kikuchi got 3 years, over $63 million. So
Severino.
Paul, that's where the market is for starting pitching. The only reason that you were able to even get Bieber for as cheap as you did is A, because Shane's a good guy and Drew Rosenhaus is a good guy and they took a big hometown discount to come back to you, and B, you had Tommy John surgery. So that's the only two reasons you were able, because guess what? Shane, and even in that case, even still with those two caveats in there, Shane still turned down better offers. So if this is where Dolan's just wants to be outpriced and he can't afford anything, well, quote unquote, bullcrap, but can't afford anything, then you got to step away, buddy. You have to step away. But again, the thing I want to know, and I think a lot of Guardians fans are sitting here thinking about, where is David Blitzer?
Yeah.
Where is he? I mean, this is the guy who's supposed to own our team, and we've seen it in his other organizations, whether it's been the New Jersey Devils of the NHL, the Washington Commanders of the MLB. He's willing, the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA, he's willing to spend. I don't see why he wouldn't be on his baseball team, but David Blitzer's supposedly supposed to take over, and I don't remember 2020.
I think it's like 6, isn't it? 2026 maybe full time.
8 actually. But Dave, could you do us a solid? Come on.
The only thing I can think of, because
we need Dave now, man.
The only thing I can think of because of what you were just saying is that there's clearly some huge deal with him not being majority yet, to where Dolan's got to be controlling that money too somehow.
Oh well, I mean the thing is, if Dave, you're probably right. But if that's David Blitzer invested into the team, that's his money, and maybe he's
correct. But also, if it's Blitzer that's, let's say, putting in the money,
right?
What if Dolan's like, then I'm getting the rewards? Why would he put the money in that?
Right. Maybe he doesn't want to put the money in until he's the majority owner.
I think that's the only thing I can think of, because the majority of those profits, you think Dolan would have control over that. You would think. So why would he put in all his money to not get the return of it?
And I'm not going to say I'm a analytics or salary expert in baseball. I like to think I know the game pretty well, and I'd like to think that I know what's going on pretty well. But one thing I saw today was the Oakland just the Athletics, I think they're calling themselves now, were going to be punished by the players union if they didn't spend X amount of dollars in free agency. That's why they overpaid Luis Severino like crazy, because they have to hit an X amount of dollars. Don't we have to do that? Don't the Pittsburgh Pirates have to do that? I'm thinking about, don't the Miami Marlins? Like, to your point, there needs to be a floor so bad it's sickening.
So bad.
Because,
so bad. Like I said, because they're not going to go for a cap. The players will never go for one. You got to live with the Yankees, Dodgers, Mets. You got to live with the big teams spending more, but you can't live with your team spending so little.
Well, and that's fine. I'll never criticize those teams for spending the money. If you could spend it, do it. The problem is, Todd Frazier said this on Foul Territory the other day, and I agree with him 100%. Small market owners like to say they're small markets so they could pocket more money than big market owners can.
I saw that take too, and I 100% agree.
And it's so true. We're small market. Okay.
Then don't own a team.
Yeah.
Don't own a team if you can't compete with it.
Right.
It's that simple.
And to your point, if they ever did put a cap in, the Dodgers have already beaten that system with the deferrals. They're paying Shohei till the year 3000. I don't know if it's,
the cap wouldn't be able to actually start until 2050.
Right.
With the way a lot of these players are paid right now.
Well, and that and you got guys who they have the soft cap in there because they have the luxury tax where if you sign certain player, there's different tax brackets where if your payroll, and I'm not 100% know all the details on this, but a basic 1,000 miles away explanation of it is, once you hit certain thresholds, you get taxed on X amount of dollars that you spend, right? And because of
Tax
Steve.
brackets in the MLB.
Yeah.
huh?
Yes. Because of Steve Cohen being so independently wealthy, they put a Cohen tax in, and he literally was quoted as saying, "I don't care." Like
Clearly he doesn't.
I will spend what I need to spend to make the New York Mets win a title. And I love it. I got to say, I love it. I love when you have an owner who doesn't care, who just spends. And
Unless
get
it's
it.
the Yankees or Dodgers, then it kind of
Right.
infuriates me, not going to lie.
But if you, and Steve
No,
Cohen
but
is
the funny thing about this Soto deal, though, is I think it actually hurts the Mets more than helps them.
We'll get there.
I do think it's fun to get him off of the Yankees, though. But yeah, go ahead. to
No,
your
we'll
point.
get there. But again, we both dislike the deal to wrap this up, but for different
Yeah.
reasons. I do because I don't think they're going to reinvest. You do point blank because you think Jimenez is basically too good of a player to trade away.
Yeah, I think he's too important to the young core that you were trying to build, and I think he was a huge part in kind of the resurgence of the Tribe post Lindor. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move on. We got to talk about it. It's the biggest story in sports, biggest contract ever in sports. Juan Soto
Yeah, unbelievable.
to the New York Mets for 15 years, $765 million. And there's an opt-out after 2029. The AAV right now is at $51 million. If he chooses to opt back in, there is incentives that can get it up to $800 million.
Yeah, I think it escalates like $5 million every year or something like
Yes.
that. It's absolutely preposterous.
Okay. So let's talk about this. I'll let you give your thoughts first, and then I'll have some thoughts too.
Yeah, so I am never a huge fan of the long, extremely, I shouldn't say overpaid because he's unquestionably a top 3 position player in baseball.
For me, it's Shohei, Judge, and him, right? Is that where you're at with it too?
Yeah,
Okay.
I would say so. I mean, if you consider Shohei a position player.
Well, right now he is. I would say so because he hasn't pitched for.
Yeah.
the
Either
last
way,
year.
yeah.
Okay,
Top
keep
2 position
going, yeah.
player excluding Shohei. I'm never a huge fan of the 10 plus year deals for, $500, $600, $700 million because in probably 6-7 years that contract's going to look horrible. And it's a big reason as to why I was a fan of, honestly, the Tribe not paying for Lindor and actually getting him out of town. But I love not seeing Juan Soto on the Yankees anymore. I think it's awesome. I think it's cool that the Yankees fans, for one, because you had said this to me the other night, the Yankees fans, for one, look at it and go, we didn't get who we wanted? Oh, no. No, somebody else can compete with you now money-wise. I think it's awesome to see, and I think it's hilarious that it's in the same city. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, absolutely. So my thoughts on this deal too. I actually think baseball-wise for the Yankees, it's not horrible because if Hal Steinbrenner was willing to spend, and Hal tapped out at 760, and I mean I don't know if the Dolans have spent $760 million on payroll in their life, and Hal tapped out at 760, and I saw Yankees fans saying he didn't do enough. Cleveland fans, imagine that. You have New York Yankee fans saying their owner didn't get enough because he tapped out at $760 million for one
player over 15, 16 years. I think his offer was 16 years, I want to say.
It was for
it was
one,
a year
so,
more for $5 million less.
Right. So you look at probably $47 million a year instead of 51.
Somewhere around there.
Right.
Yeah. Who even it's at that point you're literally it's
so
pennies.
I don't blame the Yankees for tapping out because the Yankees can go now probably trade for Kyle Tucker from Houston, probably sign Christian Walker, and they'll probably have a more complete team anyway. From the Mets' point of view, I think it actually works out too in the short term because Soto is not in his prime yet, right? And that's what makes this deal so weird is because usually when a player hits free agency, they're at 30, 31, and you're paying basically for the future for what they did in the past. For Juan Soto, why the money's so much is you're paying for what he did in the past, including winning a world championship as a teenager, putting up great numbers no matter where he was, Washington, San Diego, Yankees. And then you're also paying for the future because he's only he's
like a year away from entering like the prime years.
Right, he just turned 26. So that's why the money's so much. It's going to end up being a bad deal for the Mets in the long term. And when Juan Soto's
absolutely
37, 38 years old as a full-time DH, it's going to kill you. But the reason I don't think it's a bad deal for the Mets. And like I said, it actually works out for everybody because the Yankees can go take all that 760 that Hal was willing to spend, Steinbrenner.
Yep.
They can go disperse it amongst multiple assets and be a better complete baseball team. And the reason that it doesn't matter for the Mets is because Steve Cohen, back to him, is in a league of his own. So this would hamper literally any of the other 29 teams, but it will not hamper the Mets because Steve Cohen can give Juan Soto this, but still spend money whenever he needs to. Keep in mind, like you pointed out, he has Lindor on the books for 10 years, $341 million. And oh, by the way, they need to bring Pete Alonso back, and that won't affect. I mean, the guy's in such a league of his own money-wise that it doesn't matter, and I don't think it would kill a lot of other organizations, but with Cohen having an infinite amount of money, it's not going to kill them.
Yeah, which is funny that you just bring up the Lindor deal, the 10 years, $340 million, because that's, I think, AAV basically like half of what Soto's going to be making. And you're looking at a team in the tribe that couldn't even offer their second best player a contract. It's crazy. But yeah, and is there a better 1-2 in baseball right now? Because they're not going to move Lindor out of that leadoff spot. No shot. The way that he was killing it for them.
I don't know what they'll do with the rest of their lineup. And the thing is, to your point though, the Mets do need to add more. Like that team does need more.
Yep.
They were really, really good last year, but a big piece of that was Pete Alonso. They got to figure out a way to bring him back. And also, I don't know what the rest of the order will look like, but to your point, I know the top three in some order will be Lindor, Soto, and Vientos, because Vientos became a star last year.
Yeah, and then hopefully for them, they can get Alonso batting fourth or fifth. And I will say I low-key kind of claim the Mets as my NL team just because of Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell wears Browns gear everywhere, Tribe gear everywhere whenever he's going to events. So, you know what, Don? I'll cheer for the Mets for you.
And I know, very unpopular opinion, I still like, around here at least, I still love Francisco Lindor. And if we had a serious organization, he could still probably be ours. But
yeah, because the big key that we got for him isn't even here anymore.
Yeah. And and to go back to one more point, when they gave him that 7-year, $106 million deal, they only ended up really paying like $7 or $8 million of that deal.
Yeah, that's what you were just showing me.
Like the $95 million, they got so they ended up paying him $12 million basically because it was, they paid him even less because the final year of it's an option year for a $29 million club option. So they got off the hook only paying $6 million. There's no one in the world happier than the Dolan family right now. They gave someone a $100 million contract to look like they care and paid $6 million of it.
Yeah.
What a day for the Dolans. I mean, but anyway, back to what we were talking about. So the Mets do need to add a couple other pieces, but at the end of the day, like Jeff Passan said this, and I agree, it's a complete overpay. But it doesn't matter again because Cohen can care less about it doesn't matter to him, and he doesn't need to care. Look, and so will the Mets win a championship with Juan Soto? That remains to be seen, but I do have to give myself some flowers here, Kevin, because back last year I heard a lot of different people, having conversations. The popular baseball conversation nationally was, well, where's Juan Soto going to go? Where's Juan Soto going to go? And you can back me up on this, been saying for a year, he's going to the Mets. And everybody's reason is why. I go, because Soto doesn't care about anything besides money. And with him and Boris, they are simply just going to go to the highest bidder. And nobody is going to be able to outmatch Steve Cohen. And I got to say, I'm not right on a lot, but that's precisely what took place.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I think the season might have just kicked off. We might have been even like a month into the season, if that. It might have been before the season. I know it was a while ago that you told me, yeah, Juan Soto, he'll be a Met.
Yeah.
I was like, he just got traded to the Yankees. What are you talking about? And you're like, oh, he'll be in New York long term. It just won't be for the Yankees. Yeah. I promise you. And you were spot on with it, and the reasoning was there, and it happened. It came to fruition.
I will say, like I said, I think it actually does work out for the Yankees, though, which makes me upset. But who cares? Because we have no interest in getting back to the championship series for a rematch. So, because we're not going to reinvest any of the money we just saved. So, Yankees saved the $760 million, immediately put $218 of it back out into the market. We saved $90 million. we'll probably sign a couple minor league deals. That's what we'll put back into the market.
We'll see. I mean, we got that like 21-year-old outfielder as well from the Blue Jays.
Can't wait till he's good in 2030 and by 2031 traded. But okay, we've been so negative. I guess we can be a little positive. Like, I was super happy about the Bieber deal because at the time I thought, and it was crazy. It was only 72 hours ago or whatever. At the time I thought, wow, you're going to get an ace and you only got to pay him $14 million for the stretch run to be your ace the rest of the way. And I thought to myself, wow, that'll be awesome. They definitely got him for a steal, and it was a smart move. And the one thing I want to point out that Yonder Alonso pointed out on the MLB Network, and good for the Tribe, maybe this is where they spend all their money, is on their doctors. Okay. Because Yonder Alonso said, I played 6 different places in my career. Cleveland was known as having the best medical staff. And I think it's crazy to say, but how good the trainers and medical staff are another reason why Shane probably wanted to stay, because, you're in the middle of rehabbing from major arm surgery. You don't want to start with a bunch of new docs and new trainers and all that to go through a rehab.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also think it's just a lot of it has to go back to, I think it's a lot of the just kind of having his roots here, from climbing up here. I know there were rumors even back when the Nationals still had Bryce Harper that the Tribe could have been involved and almost traded Shane, or there were rumors about a Shane Bieber for Bryce Harper swap when he was just a prospect. For some reason, I just remember that, and now he's turned into one of the best pitchers in our lifetime for this team, and it's cool to have him back for another year. And like you said, if we're making a push towards the end of it, they always seem to be right in the middle of it, kind of no matter what. The Tribe do, at least. They've been the most consistent organization throughout our lifetime. So I think we could see him in the middle of a playoff push, and I'm excited to see number 57 back out there.
All right, since we're on the baseball talk, more breaking news into the Cleveland Sports Realm studio here.
Okay.
A guy I just mentioned 30 minutes ago coming here, Nathan Eovaldi, 3 years, $75 million deal to stay in Texas. I mean, the pitching money is just crazy. I mean, it's crazy. And I know how we spend. I don't know. We're screwed because we're not going to spend money for a pitcher. I mean, I think the best thing we can hold out hope with, if we want to put a positive spin to this, is we're going to have to trade for some sort of pitcher. And that's one thing I was really hoping. If the return, instead of a single A prospect, was like Spencer Horwitz and like Chris Bassett, I'd have been thrilled. We need another starting pitcher. I mean, we're screwed.
Yeah, but even that, I wouldn't have been that excited.
I would have been.
He's 35. He's 36 years old. Coming off like a 4.1, 4.2 ERA. Nothing crazy. And you're going to have him for a year. That wouldn't have excited me too much at all.
See, the pitching, though, is so important. And right now,
I know it's important, but I want to be focused on this year, but I also don't want to be too short-sighted at the same time.
See, I mean, you get to the American League Championship Series. To me, you should be pushing your chips to the center of the table, and instead, we're taking our chips and throwing them right on into Lake Erie to Canada. I mean, it's frustrating. Like, you need to be pushing your chips. You need to be out there and being aggressive, and we're doing lackadaisical horse crap things.
No, I agree with you. I'm just saying at the same time, I feel like in that trade alone, adding a 35-year-old pitcher wouldn't have excited me any more than, an 18-year-old single-A prospect.
See, I'd have been fine, Chris Batt, because
either way, they need to do more than what they're doing right now.
Right.
They were in the ALCS. They won a game in the ALCS. They were a few games away from a World Series appearance, and they're trading key players and not spending money.
Just overall observation, these are the most active winter meetings I remember in quite a while. Like they said Soto's going to set the market and everybody was going to wait for Soto. And since that happened on Sunday night, people have been flying off this board left and right, man. Which is good because baseball needs this. What is a super popular thing amongst NFL fans in March? Free agency frenzy. Basketball, middle of summer, everybody
loves the deadline. Everybody loves the big trades that happen in the offseason.
Right. People love player movement and player acquisition. And baseball's fallen behind in that because the winter meetings have been so slow the last few years. This is actually a good thing for baseball that there's this much going on at the winter meetings.
I absolutely agree because these kids are probably seeing, these 12, 13-year-old kids who are big time into sports are seeing like Juan Soto traded. Oh my God, you see the contract this guy got?
Right.
Whoa. And then all of a sudden, Juan Soto jersey bought. They got the Mets game on. They got the whatever game on. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think player movement, it's just good for business. Whether you like it or not as a fan, it's great for business. There's no getting around it. And these big deals and these big trades they're cool to see no matter what the sport is. They really are.
Right, absolutely. So, just thinking about it, if Nathan Eovaldi got $75 million, I'm really curious to see what Corbin Burnes is going to get because, I think Corbin Burnes is a significantly better pitcher than Max Fried, and Max Fried got $218 million. It'll be interesting to see what Burnes gets.
Yeah,
for sure.
How old is Burnes now? Do you know?
I don't off the top of my head.
Because I'd imagine he's going to be getting 30 plus a year.
Easily, I would think.
Yeah, let's look into that.
And then.
Because I've always thought that pitchers were overpaid.
Corbin Burnes is 32.
He's 32.
He just turned 30.
I've always thought pitchers have been overpaid, not because they're not important, just because they play 20% of the time, and even in those games, they only pitch about 50% of it. So you're only, probably like 60% of it, I should say. But at the same time, it's like those players play such a short amount of the season for you. I know they're important, but to hand somebody who's going to play hypothetically, 12 to 13% of the entire season when you're talking innings, $30 million for that is just asinine money in my opinion.
Yeah, I get that point of view, but I also know that when you don't have the reason why it's so valued so highly is because if your team has a bunch of crappy hitters, you could still be okay. We've seen that here with Cleveland. If you have a crappy lineup, you can be okay.
That was the Tigers this past year too, actually.
Very good point. If you have a crappy rotation, good luck. You're not winning more than 65 games. And that's why they get the money they do, in my opinion, because they are so vital. And if you don't have a good pitching staff, you're not going anywhere fast. To me, I can make the argument outside of a quarterback, an ace pitcher is one of the most important positions all across sports.
Yeah, Yeah, I could see that argument. I absolutely could see that argument. I'm not. It's definitely the most important sport in baseball. So I'm trying to think.
Most important position in baseball, you meant?
Yeah, position. Yeah. Sorry, I misspoke there.
You're good.
But I would say it's definitely the most important position in baseball. So. Looking at other, you see when it comes to NBA, almost any player at any position, if they're good enough, can carry a team. It doesn't really matter the position on that.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
That's an interesting topic, but that's the way I view it. So that's why I view paying them that much money is okay because you see when you got good ones, you can go a long, long way.
Absolutely.
So, all right. Well, I think we've just covered about everything in baseball. If anything else, Guardians news breaks, don't hold your breath.
We'll definitely let you know. We are recording this Tuesday night, so when this drops Thursday morning, if anything happened Wednesday, unfortunately we won't have it for you. But yeah, so Jerome, let's pivot. So you and I were in Pittsburgh this weekend.
Yes,
we were in Pittsburgh for Browns Steelers. We spent the entire day on Saturday just kind of hanging out with your dad, watching football, which was a good time. Yeah. But I kind of want to talk about, before we get to college football, I do want to talk about Browns Steelers and kind of our experience in Pittsburgh at Acrisure. I'm going to start giggling as I'm talking about this because this was one of the more fun experiences I've had in the section that we were in.
Shout out to section 109 at Acrisure, yeah. Man. Everybody was great.
Everybody was fantastic. We were getting along with a lot of the Steelers fans that we were talking shop, talking football with a lot of them. A lot of them, it was funny. You would have thought a couple of the fans in this area would have owned Acrisure Stadium, Gave us a handshake and said, "Hey, hope you're really enjoying your time here. Yeah. If you need anything, let us know."
A couple ambassadors.
Yeah, no, seriously, it was fun. I think they're half joking, half serious at the same time. They didn't want us to be miserable, but obviously they weren't gonna, go grab us anything if we asked them to, But we had a really fun time. But there was a little bit of controversy in our section at one point.
2024 Cheesegate.
The 2024 Cheesegate at Acrisure Stadium. So Jerome and I forget. I want to say it was the third quarter. I'm pretty sure we were past halftime, and
It was.
the entire section. I know we had stood up because there were a couple ladies in our section that were coming back from concessions, and Jerome and I stand up and let them walk past us. And the one lady's got her nachos and a drink, and I forget what the other lady was carrying, but lady number one with the nachos. I don't know how this happened, but her nachos just flew and went everywhere. And luckily we were in the row that we were in, because just about the next 3, maybe 4 rows in front of us, in a good probably 6-seat radius, would you say?
Ooh,
6
to 8.
6 to 8 seat radius from side to side. 3 to 4 rows in front of us just got doused in salsa and nacho cheese. Mostly nacho cheese.
There was cheese everywhere. We're not kidding, guys. Ladies who are listening, there was cheese everywhere.
Yeah.
And I mean, people's jerseys, people's coats, people's winter hats, my beer. I mean,
Jerome, he goes, Kevin, I mean, look at this. And he had a canned Yingling, and right over the top of it, just a little bit of nacho cheese spread right around the rim. And what did you do with that nacho cheese, Jerome? You want to let him know?
I mean, I had to lick it off. I didn't want cheese in my beer, guy. Oh, come on.
Disgusting. But there was a guy about 3 to 4 rows in front of us at the very tail end of the nacho cheese that he literally stands up, picks up his coat. I mean, and he's looking right at us, and there is just cheese all over the sleeve.
I mean, this is a nice black leather winter coat.
Yeah, like a very nice one. And he looks up, and the lady that spilled it, like, they make eye contact, and the guy goes, I mean, what the bleep? And she just walks to her seat, 4 seats down, and sits down, and he goes, what did he say?
I mean, seriously?
Yeah. Seriously? So there's like 5-6 people that end up leaving our section to go clean up this whole cheese mess. It was hilarious, though.
And honestly, the concrete, too. I looked at the right below us, the 3-4 rows in front of, I mean, I don't know how this woman managed to get cheese everywhere. And the lady who was sitting next to me, shout out to her, she was a Browns fan. She's sitting next to me, and she says, maybe we should all keep it down. And I said, it's really hard to keep it down when you get, she goes, she seems really embarrassed over there. And I go, well, first of all, she didn't get any napkins to help out anybody.
Yeah, you got to at least, when you make a mess like that, you got to offer some help. You can't just sit down, by the way, 4 seats away from where it happened. You're not fooling anyone.
Right. And then second of all, I go, I mean, this is the event of the day. I go, the game's boring right now. We're losing, because she's Browns fan too. We're losing by 20. This is what folks are talking about. And, I mean, it was hysterical. And luckily, Kevin and I did not get any cheese too much on us. I did notice when I got home, though, I did have a spot down on my calf. My clothes did not get completely unscathed in the Cheesegate. But
yeah, well, you know what was funny too was there was a Browns fan about 2 rows behind us, and I get a tap on the shoulder. And I turn around, and says Browns fan. He goes, "Now we know what those towels are for."
That was good too, yeah. And the lady next to me who had said the woman had been embarrassed who spilled the cheese goes, "I mean, there's thousands of towels. Somebody could use those to wipe it up," and that was pretty funny too.
Yeah, but yeah, that was our experience in Acrisure in terms of social wise in the environment. We had a good time. I mean, the Browns lost, but in terms of experience with the people around us, I thought we had a good time in our section.
Yeah, absolutely. And real quick, I had mentioned this last night. I was a guest on a friend of ours, Andrew Hody's podcast. And
92.3 The Fan.
Yes, Andrew. Yeah. And he had asked me, he asked me the same thing, how was my experience down there and all that. And I said, I have now been down there every single game since 2007, and besides 2020, because of COVID, I have yet to see the Browns win. I mean, think about that. I've been down there 17, 18 times. Whatever, the math.
I haven't seen them win once.
I've never seen them. I mean, that is ridiculous. I mean, I get it. they don't win in Cleveland anymore, which I love. And I've pointed that out, go back a couple pods ago and listen, because I'm a big fan of that stat. I absolutely love it. But the fact we have not beaten them down there, and think about that, that's just my personal experience since 2007. But there's 04, 05, 06, they didn't win. They have not won down there since 2003. I mean, we are 27 years old. They have not won a game with fans in the stands in that building since we were 6. That is utterly ridiculous and pathetic.
Yeah, we've been close a couple times. There was I want to say it was 2014. Was it the year where they had that comeback, but they
lost on a game-winning field goal.
Game-winning field goal, and then actually, believe it or not, the 0-16 year, that was just about as close as they came as well.
Yeah, I mean, they've trust me, they play it close down there most times, and I know that.
Last year was a close year too, actually, with Deshaun.
Lost by 4, 26-22.
Yep.
4 cost us in that game. Who's surprised? I mean, he fumbled the game away, quite literally, and then we still managed to get the ball back, and he threw the ball into the 5th row stands on 3rd down.
Yep.
I mean, this year, there's not much to say about the game. Look, we're officially out of playoff contention.
Yep.
Jameis threw 2 more picks. I mean, if there's one thing that I can continue being positive about, it's my guy, Jerry Jeudy. Shout out to him. I wore my Jeudy jersey in Pittsburgh on Sunday. I was so proud of him. But he legitimately looks like a number 1. And the coolest thing about it is, talk about just like baseball pitchers, football receivers are getting at minimum $100 million now. If you're a good one, we got him for 3 years for $50 million. That starts next year. And because we're paying so much money we need deals like that. So I'll give Andrew Berry an ounce of credit there. He got Jerry Jeudy way under market value for a number 1 wide receiver. And I think we debated it last week on the pod. I think it's safe to say he is after another touchdown on Sunday in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and going to your contract point, obviously these receivers nowadays are making upwards to like $30 million. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown's is 4 years, 120 something. That's over $30 million a year. And you're paying Jerry Jeudy, obviously not the player that Amon-Ra is, but $17 million for a wide receiver 1 when other ones are making $30+ million. I'll take it. He's had his best career ever, or he's had his best year of his career ever, and it hasn't even been close. And it's been a pleasure to watch, especially when we first got him and signed him to that contract. Everybody goes, we haven't even paid Amari Cooper yet, and we're handing out $51 million to a receiver that's never hit 1,000 yards, that hasn't hit his ceiling yet. We don't know what he's going to be. And now it's a steal of a contract. It's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And with paying the worst quarterback in the league that much money the next 2 years you're on the hook for, you're going to have to find more of these deals. Yeah. You're going to have to find more Jerry Jeudy under the brushed under the rug type of contract extensions.
Yeah, which obviously it's way easier said than done to be able to do that. So I don't think they're gonna. I wouldn't have too many high hopes on finding gem contracts.
Yeah, absolutely. And minus the interceptions, I still think that they are so pigeonholed right now, and there's no other way to go. I still am behind a Jameis Winston contract extension. I get it. He turns over the ball a lot, but they don't have any other option. And I'm sorry, he still gives you a hell of a lot better of a chance to win than Deshaun Watson does.
Yeah, he does. And, if worst comes to worst, don't care. Like I think worst case scenario, you bring Jameis back. That's your worst case scenario, is that it's Jameis.
It's not a bad worst case scenario.
No, that's my point. Yeah. Because I don't think another team's going to offer him a significant amount of money to start elsewhere. So you're looking at a guy, the team already loves him. I was listening to the radio show this morning, Ken Carman's show with Anthony Lima. Rodney McLeod was on, and he talked about how much they love Jameis as a teammate. Yeah. You can just tell that there's something about his presence that at least brings the team together. So whether they're great, whether they're not, I'd rather be 7-10 with Jameis Winston than 7-10 with Deshaun Watson. I just would. And yeah, the only other option I would look at, I'm not sure what the contract looks like, because for some reason I believe I was reading an article about the Saints looking to potentially move on from Derek Carr. Now, I wouldn't mind that if that was an option. If there's any way that Derek Carr could come to town, I wouldn't mind it as a 2-year stopgap while you try to find a rookie. But like I said, worst case, if it's Jameis, I don't mind that either. I love Jameis.
maybe I'm being short-sighted here. I'd rather have Jameis than Derek Carr right now.
Can I ask why?
I think he's I believe he's a little bit younger, just by a little bit, and I think that you could get him cheaper. And Derek Carr is on a pretty healthy size extension, so the Lord knows the last thing we have the ability to do is spend money right now.
Yeah, the only thing I know that Carr was drafted in 2014, and I only know that because that was the Manziel draft. And I know Jameis Winston was the first pick in 2015. So for some reason I want to say Carr was a senior when he came out and Jameis was a junior. But I kind of want to see that now. So Derek Carr is 33 years old.
Jameis is 30. So yeah, he is. He's younger.
Yeah, Jameis is 30. Wow, he's that much younger?
Yeah, he's younger, to my point, and the money for Carr is lunacy. I mean, the last thing we need to do right now is overpay another quarterback. So I got to tell you, Kevin, usually I respect your opinions. I couldn't disagree with that any more than I just did. I mean, I think I have zero interest in that idea.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying I wouldn't mind having Derek Carr here. I mean, I also would love if Jameis was back. I've been on record saying that. I've said that the last two pods. I love Jameis. The only problem is the ceiling is so limited to this team with the amount of turnovers that we have with him. That's the only downfall, I think, of running it back with him.
Yeah, but you've got to be able to at least push the ball down the field and move the football, and he does that. And
I agree.
And I'm sorry. And we'll get into this because we're going to, I think, move to college football and wrap up with that here shortly, right?
Yeah.
Or that'll be our last subject matter of the evening.
Right.
But Jameis is better, gives you a better chance to win than any of these college quarterbacks, and I don't think we're going to be quite bad enough where we're going to get any. The only one that even moves the needle for me a little bit would be Cam Ward. I think if Shedeur Sanders' name was Joe Smith, no one would talk about him. They only talk about him because he's Prime's kid. I think he's going to stink. And the Browns don't need that three-ring circus with Prime involved and all that. Let that three-ring circus go to a showman city. Let that go to Vegas, please. Cam Ward will go to the Giants. And who the heck else is worth taking in the first round? I don't know.
No, yeah, 100%. And, I think I was talking last week about it. I may not have said it on the pod, but I know I was talking with you about it. Drew Aller and Quinn Ewers, based off those games this past weekend, Ewers is dang near completely off my board. I don't know he just doesn't impress me when I watch him.
He seems to get worse every time he plays.
Yeah, it's weird. It's a weird thing. But Drew Aller, this is what I'll say about Drew Aller. I think if he was a second, third round pick, I would not take him in the first round pick of this draft right now, just with how much development I think he needs. But if you can get him second, third round and have him sit behind somebody for a year, maybe 2 years, I think his ceiling is actually pretty large. If he can actually learn the NFL for a year or two. If he jumps in, I think it's going to fail miserably.
Right.
But I think if he can sit for a year or two, learn from a starter, learn from a stopgap quarterback who's been in the league for 8 to 10 years minimum, I think he can have a shot in this league.
Northeast Ohio guy too.
He is.
Medina kid.
He is.
One thing. This podcast, we may agree, we may disagree one time. One thing that we are lockstep on, and we've disagreed a few times now, and that's okay. We are lockstep on the Cleveland Browns need to select Will Campbell from LSU, and that's not going to change. If you guys listen from now until April, we're going to talk about Will Campbell at least once an episode. It's who we need.
Yeah, it's who I want. It's who, like you just said, I think it's who we need. It's a very important position, left tackle. I was texting a friend of mine from high school, Austin, about Will Campbell, and he had said that there was potential of him possibly being a guard. I don't want to even remotely think about that. We got Petonio for, like I said, God knows how long. Wyatt Teller, who recently came out and said he's playing his butt off for the end of the year because he wants an extension to stay here. I think Will Campbell, bona fide left tackle, and a funny story, I was just showing you this one on Saturday when we were watching the Penn State game, is that Will Campbell is the first offensive lineman in LSU history to be given the honors of number 7, and we know that's a historic number in that program. Grant Delpit, Patrick Peterson, I know I want to say Morris Claiborne might have even
I
gotten it.
think Mo Claiborne did wear
But
that.
it's a very prestigious, mainly given to defensive backs at that university, and because offensive linemen can't wear that number, he's worn it as a patch. So I thought that spoke volumes to him as a player, and obviously volume to him as a leader. I think it'd be huge to get him as an addition to this offensive line. I don't want to reach for a quarterback just because they feel the need to. I'm with you. I do like Cam Ward. I don't like him enough to take him in the top 3, top 5 of this draft. If there's nobody worth taking at a position of need in the top 10 and for some reason he's there, don't think he would be. But if for some reason he's there, I think it's worth taking a flyer on maybe at that point and having him sit behind Jameis. But yes, Will Campbell, I'm all in with you. Usually you and I disagree on who we want in the first round, and this is one that as soon as one of us brought it up, we were like, oh yeah, I'm with you.
Yep, Will Campbell's the guy. And if it's anything else, we'll come on here and complain. So that's just the way it's going to be.
We have about 4.5 months, almost 5 months until we have a right to complain about who the Browns are drafting. So we're going to give it some time.
Yeah.
We're going to give it some time. But
and we'll talk more draft in the offseason. But with them officially being eliminated, it's kind of that
draft season.
It's that time of the year again in Cleveland, unfortunately. But real quick, we don't have to touch on it too long, but Chiefs game on Sunday. You know, the Chiefs don't win impressively at all, so I do think the Browns have a minimal chance on Sunday. However, they're not going to win the game.
They're not going to win. But actually, I do want to go back really quick to Browns-Steelers, just touch on it before we get to Browns-Chiefs. Did you see who the highest graded player in PFF was this week? This isn't just on the Browns. This isn't just in that game. This is across the entire NFL. Did you see who the highest graded player in the National Football League was this week?
No.
Isaiah McGuire.
You know, he has been showing up a little bit.
He absolutely has been. And I was actually a fan of when we drafted him. I mean, you never get too excited about these 4th, 5th round picks. But whenever we draft somebody at like a key position from a big school, you kind of start to get a little bit of excited. And Missouri's Missouri. It's still a quality program, good team. And I was excited when they drafted him. He's been playing a lot more, and he's been making a pretty big impact. Even the plays that don't show up in the stat sheet, he's disrupting plays, forcing a running back inside that gets tackled at the line of scrimmage. He didn't make the tackle, but he caused him to break in.
Right.
He forces some quarterback hurries. He's been very good lately, and I'm glad he's getting recognized for it.
I think he kind of pops on the film lately.
I think he does, too. I think he's got
when you're at the game, same thing.
You know what they say about that? They say he's twitchy.
Yeah.
A lot of NFL scouts say he's twitchy.
Right. I agree, though, but there's another guy, you know. You're not going to be able to bring in a big end to pair with Miles next season, so if this kid keeps playing well, maybe he's your starting other end with Miles.
Yeah, and at that point,
they're going to need more stuff like that again because they're so screwed with the cap.
Which I think might go back to your original point of this. They need to find the Jerry Jeudy deals.
Yes.
So if they can get out in front of this, if Isaiah McGuire, let's say, because this is his 2nd year in the league.
Right, so they'll have 2 more.
Yeah, I think they can sign him officially after next season. So maybe give him maybe you just have him rotating in and out because I think next year's oboes last year. Maybe you have them kind of rotate, have a three-person pass rush that you rotate between Miles, Obo, and McGuire. And if McGuire starts flashing, I'd offer him a contract sooner rather than later and get out in front of that big money.
Right, and I got to say, you know, as much as we like to criticize Andrew Berry, and a lot of it rightly so on this podcast, Shelby Harris is having another good year at D-tackle, and that was a cheap 1-year signing. And I would honestly, if they could somehow figure out how to, they're going to have to shed salary somehow, but whatever. We'll figure that out in the offseason. But if somehow, some way they can give Shelby a 3rd straight 1-year deal, I'm all for it. The guy's been a leader. He's been solid, and not much more to say there. Just solid player.
And Dalvin Tomlinson's been a great signing too.
Absolutely. Dalvin Tomlinson does a lot of things that don't jump off the stat sheet at you, but if you know ball, as they like to say, Dalvin is a darn good football player.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, so veering back to Browns Chiefs to your original transition here. Yeah, I don't trust the Browns against Mahomes. We saw Mahomes here back in 2018, I believe. I think it was Baker's rookie year.
Yes, it was.
And
it was actually, I'll tell you a fun fact. It was come get some's first game as the coach, Greg Williams.
Was it his first game as head coach?
First game as head coach.
That is a fun fact, actually.
Yep.
That is a fun fact. Yeah. So I don't trust our offense against this defense. we said this either last pod or 2 pods ago. The Chiefs have been more defense than offense this year, which is weird to say, but it's been true. So I don't trust Jameis's decisions against this defense, and quite frankly, too many breakdowns with this defense to trust going up against Mahomes. I think on paper it looks extremely lopsided, but the Browns play tough sometimes. They randomly
Kansas
do.
City.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. Keep going.
I was going to say, I could see Kansas City 26-23, like a very close game. And I would like a close game, whether we win or lose. I don't want to be embarrassed anymore. I want to show some fight and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I agree with you. And they haven't given up. The only game you could argue they gave up was the Saints game.
Yep.
But besides, we let them know about it on the. Go back and listen. We let them hear about it.
Yeah, and speaking of somebody who we let know that week was Juan Thornhill. We noticed him on the sideline a lot
on Sunday.
We were on the Browns sideline. We were in row double E, so probably row like 30-ish.
Right.
30, 31, 32, whatever that ends up being. And Juan Thornhill, all 33 million of them, was on the sideline for a lot of those snaps. It seemed. I haven't seen the snap count, but there's no way he played 40+%. I don't think.
No, and he shouldn't. Hickman's better.
No, yeah, Hickman's good. Hickman flies out there.
Yeah.
That's something that excites me about him. I know they tried him out at corner in the preseason. It didn't work too well. I think they were just trying to see what they had depth-wise and if they should keep another corner or if he could fill that role. But him at free safety with Delpit in the box, I love it. He's a good roamer. And I think even he comes up and makes some plays in the box too. He's a really good player. I shouldn't say another because it's not like he goes out and finds him on a routine basis, but a pretty good undrafted find for Andrew Berry.
Yeah, absolutely. And you got to give him credit for doing that.
Yep.
Absolutely. But like I said with Kansas City, they to me just don't impress me. But like you said, the 15 factor is a big factor.
15 factor, and then our 5 factor. We know we're gonna give them a couple. They play tight defense. They play physical defense.
He gives and he takes, man. He's a charitable guy.
Yeah, he is.
All right, let's wrap things up here this evening with college football. And Kevin, we had a heck of a time and enjoyed watching a lot of the championship games on Saturday. And real quick to run them down, Big 12, big surprise to us. Scatterboo from Arizona State. Keep the name in mind.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
We were wrong there. Texas, Georgia, an absolute defensive battle that we were wrong there.
Well, actually, I was right on, but I do want to get out in front of this on a couple things. The Matt Campbell thing that I had said last week, I apologize because I know in the podcast I had said I had brought it up to you. You had brought it up to me. So I want to apologize. That was all Jerome.
Hey, I wish you wouldn't have said that because after watching that guy's defense, I have no interest in him coaching my team anymore. But thanks anyway.
I still like Matt Campbell.
Yeah.
But anyways, that and then what were we okay. I also made a mistake on Georgia, Texas when I was predicting it last week. I predicted the team that I wanted, but for some reason I had said that that Texas had beaten Georgia, and that was the reason. I don't know why I said that because Texas had not beaten Georgia earlier that year.
Right, and I agreed with you, so I'm just as much of an idiot.
But no, but anyway, I did think Georgia was going to win that game. I did predict it the way I thought it was going to. I know it's easier for me to say that now that happened, but I did think Georgia was going to go in and win that game. That was a great game, though. That was a really, really, really good game.
And then
Texas just could not get out of their own way. It was penalty after penalty with them.
No, and Georgia, Carson Beck sat down. The offense moved better than they have in weeks.
Yeah, it was Gunnar Stockton. It sounds like Beck's probably going to be out for the remainder of the year from what I was reading. So they got to rely on Stockton. I forget if he's a true freshman or if he's a sophomore, like a red shirt.
I think he's redshirted.
Okay, either way, very young player, and Georgia should have them. I mean, who knows how the transfer portal works now? They should have them for a couple of years, you'd think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I thought Trevor Etienne coming back for the first time in 3 weeks was magnificent in that game.
Yeah.
Magnificent. Moving to the Big Ten, I predicted an Oregon blowout. Shout out to the Nittany Lions. They played way better than I thought they would. James Franklin, as I pointed out, though, still can't win the big game.
Yep.
And Kevin, 2 things that we both noticed coaching-wise there on Franklin. Went for 2 way too early.
Way too early. I think it was the third quarter.
Yeah, went way too early. And then secondly, 3rd and 1 with let's say 1 and change left on the clock, I believe it was.
Okay.
Right? And they throw that deep ball. What the heck were they doing? Because you pointed that out right away and said, and they threw an interception. That was really stupid.
You need 1 yard.
Right.
Yeah. James Franklin's, I don't know if it's him that's calling the shots when it comes to the plays, but I've noticed a lot of these big games, he outthinks himself, it seems like.
Right.
It's like you would never do this against another team. But when it's a big game, he overthinks it. I think he's trying to think what the defense is thinking, but if the defense is thinking, I'm doing this, then they must be doing. I think he just runs through so much stuff in his mind. It's like, hey, 3rd and 1, run it up the gut twice.
Right. Absolutely. And then, you know what, though? I'll give him credit, though, because I thought for sure it's 28-10. We're having a few adult beverages, kick back, watching the game, and I'm thinking, oh, they're done. I mean, they're going to roll over and die, and we're thinking about flipping the channel back over to the ACC title game. And, boy, here comes Penn State. And that's something that Penn State exposed for the rest of the country to see. Oregon can't stop the run. I mean, each of their backs had over 100 yards, and they seem to run the ball at will whenever they wanted.
Which, if Ohio State gets past Tennessee and you face Oregon, you should have the same game plan you had against Michigan because it might work.
Well, knowing the way they run things lately, they'll start throwing the thing all over the place. They'll do the opposite of what they should.
They'll start throwing it all over the place.
They probably will. That's the way things have gone lately. Mountain West title game. I got nothing to say besides that Boise State running back's a stud, and he should win the Heisman.
He should win the Heisman. He should absolutely win the Heisman.
And then ACC, SMU. You can't give up the big kickoff return there. Shout out to the Clemson kicker, though. 56-yarder for the true freshman. That was awesome. I'm not a Dabo Swinney guy, but I will give him credit. I thought it was awesome. The second that game was over, he did his post-game interview and immediately was campaigning for the Mustangs. That was really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. He clearly respects that team a lot, and I think he probably has a lot of animosity for Alabama too, just knowing the history that he's had with them. So I'm sure it was a slight shot at Alabama just as much as it was a compliment to SMU.
Right, absolutely. And you like to see when coaches speak up for their conferences. I've always been a fan of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was funny when we had that game on Saturday night. It seemed like we never had the right game on because that and the Big Ten championship were on.
We're trying to flip-flop.
We're trying to flip-flop and try to, when it's a commercial, flip to the other one and vice versa. So we've always got a game on. And I know we had the ACC championship game on.
Right.
And I get a text from a friend because Penn State had just brought it to within 7, and then they had just got a punt or a kickoff, whatever it might have been. And so we flip to the ACC game when it goes to commercial, and I get a text from a friend, oh my God, Penn State pick. Now they're down 2 touchdowns. I'm like, we just missed a huge momentum shift. Go back to that one within 10 minutes. Did you guys see what SMU's doing? And SMU made the comeback. I was like, can we get the right game on the TV, please?
Yeah, we just could not get it figured out.
We couldn't.
But anyway, I think we'll preview all the playoff games next week because it'll be closer to.
Yeah, I did want to talk about really quick before we wrap it up, just if how the rankings worked, because the committee clearly made it known that they're not harping on conference championship losses, which I thought was really cool. They didn't drop. So before it started, it was Oregon 1, Texas 2, Penn State 3, Notre Dame 4. So what are they? Those 2 lost. Georgia beat Texas. So all that happened was Georgia jumped all of them and bumped them down a spot. That was it.
Right.
They clearly didn't value that. And especially with SMU. SMU was 11-1 going into that game. Clemson 9-3. They won. But Clemson surprisingly didn't jump SMU. I thought that was pretty surprising.
Yeah, that was a little bit weird. But I think what that showed you is similar to the NCAA tournament, if you get a chance to win your conference tournament, the best comparison I can make is a conference championship game is like a conference tournament. Unfortunately, though, in football, you can't give everybody a shot and play a conference tournament in football.
Right.
It's just ludicrous.
Right.
But like in basketball, you could have like a god-awful team. I remember Georgetown, I think 3-4 years ago, won 8 games in the regular season, went up to MSG, won the conference tournament, got themselves into the NCAA tournament, which is now their version. We can call it the NCAAF tournament for all intents and purposes, right? Clemson had no chance to make that unless they went to Charlotte and got that win. So this kind of shows you, if you get to that conference championship game and you have, no shot of making the play, that conference championship game could get you in. And in Clemson's case, like, I know you said you're surprised they didn't jump SMU, as am I, but it does just show, if you just get a chance to be there, who cares at that point? You're one of the 12.
Yeah, no, I do have a couple questions for you, too, when it comes to that. So, obviously, Penn State lost against Oregon. With them having 2 losses and Ohio State having 2 losses, even though Ohio State beat them, do you think Penn State should have dropped below Ohio State, or do you think it was appropriate that they basically just missed the bye weeks?
So, the Buckeye fan of me thinks that Ohio State probably should have moved up, but I guess the way that they looked at it was, okay, they got to a conference championship game, which versus the Buckeyes couldn't even get to that. So let's not punish them for getting to the conference title game.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's cool. Going back to SMU, I was really worried they were going to put in Bama.
I think the whole country was, unless you're a Tide fan.
Seriously. See, I think the entire country was, and I think they got it right. I think it was, you would have been punishing SMU for getting to that point and then rewarding Bama for not getting to that point.
Can we say, though, all the talk about this, and I think we both are on the same page with this one, you can always debate seedings. I mean, look at March Madness every year. There's 68 teams, and we sit there for an entire night and the next day until that Thursday and break down the bracket. These teams get seeded here, so on and so forth. But so you could always debate seeding until the end of time. But can we say that they got the 12 right? It's the 12 who deserved it. The 12. Now, Clemson, you could argue, maybe not. But, hey, they won that conference championship, and they did what they had to do. So guess what? As far as I'm concerned, the Tigers got where they needed to be.
No, yeah, I think they got the exact right 12 teams. Again, I think you can argue seeding. I thought Clemson probably should have jumped SMU just because of the win, but either way, you're arguing at that point between the 11 and 12. Who cares?
Right, and like I said, you could argue seeding until the end of time, no matter the sport. You could always argue seeding.
Yeah, I think.
But the important thing is getting the teams right, and they did.
Absolutely, they got the teams right. I think the only thing they need to fix in the future in regards to the playoff format right now is the bye weeks for conference championship winners, and I think they need to reseed after the bye week because Oregon right now has a gauntlet, and they're the number 1 seed. They got to face either Ohio State or Tennessee, and then follow that up with most likely Penn State.
Right.
And then it's going to be the national championship game if they even get that far. Like, that is a gauntlet to start out. So I think conference championship winners should get an automatic bid. I think they should automatically be in the playoff. I don't know about the bye weeks, though, because right now Boise State and Arizona State having bye weeks when you've got Penn State and Texas, who are clearly better teams, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit weird. But it also gives value to the conference championship game because if you win it, then you get a bye week.
I was actually going to say that. You pushed back on your own argument. I was going to do it for you.
I immediately rethought it, yeah.
But you got to keep these conference championship games. If you're going to still have them, they got to keep with some value.
Yeah, because at that point, then Oregon, Penn State, they were basically battling for a bye week because whoever didn't get it was going to get 5 or 6.
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah.
All right, well, I think that'll just about do it for this week's episode. Appreciate you guys commenting. We see that you're still commenting. We'll enjoy interacting with you. Please tweet us as well at CLE Sports Realm and make sure to subscribe. We appreciate all the subscribers we have. You can subscribe on YouTube and or Spotify. And like we always say, any and all support you give us, we appreciate it. So for Kevin, for myself, for the great producer, the esteemed Derek Lee himself, we'll see you guys next week.
Go Browns.